Good evening. It's Wednesday, the 23rd of November, and it's time for the news on RIK 2. President Anastasiades gave an interview this evening to brief people on the Mont Pelerin Cyprus issue negotiations on territory and their ultimate failure in the early hours yesterday. Following introductory remarks, the president, who returned from Switzerland yesterday afternoon, responded for almost an hour to questions from the chief editors of the 8 nationwide television networks. Earlier in the day, the government spokesman had said that President Anastasiades would be given a detailed account of the Mont Pelerin negotiations and how he sees the process moving forward, while the purpose of taking questions is to provide a complete picture of all events. The president has called a meeting of the National Council tomorrow at 10 in the morning to brief political leaders and the current state of play following the Mont Pelerin deadlock. President Anastasiades was also briefing the European Union and other involved or interested parties on the international scene regarding the Switzerland negotiations and their outcome. According to government spokesman Nicos Anastasiades, beyond his phone conversation with Greek Prime Minister Tsipras, President Anastasiades also briefed European Parliament President Martin Schulz, representatives of the other EU institutions, and the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. Meanwhile, Christodoulidis categorically refuted reports of differences between Athens and Nicosia, noting that the two governments are coordinating their efforts. He did not rule out a meeting between the President and the Greek Prime Minister in the near future. On the substance of the process, the government spokesman expressed the readiness of the Greek Cypriot side to continue negotiations from where they left off without any preconditions. He further made clear that the Turkish side's demand to set a date for a 5-party international conference prior to the territory criteria as absolutely unacceptable. In order for an international conference to take place, he added, the two sides must be at the doorstep of a solution, having finalized the territory criteria and codified them on a map. Otherwise, he stressed, such a conference would lead to failure. Turkish Cypriot leader Mustafa Akinci laid the blame for the Mont Pelerin deadlock solely on the shoulders of the Greek Cypriot side. On his return to the occupied territories, Akinci said that if there is a desire for a solution, the process will continue, adding that he expects the Greek Cypriot side to adopt a logical and courageous stance. Referring to the first phase of negotiations at Mont Pelerin in early November, the Turkish Cypriot leader claimed that it was his own courageous stance and initiative that forced, as he said, President Anastasiades to request a recess and a return to Cyprus for negotiations with Greece and the political leadership. Akinci expressed his readiness to continue negotiations. In Ankara, Turkish Foreign Ministry sources told our correspondent that the process to be followed on the Cyprus issue would be decided in the next couple of days. The same sources say that Turkey is in favour of continuing negotiations, but insists on its position that a date for an international conference must be set as soon as possible. On the UN side, Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon was briefed by his special advisor Espan Barth-Aida on the state of play and reviewed developments following the negotiations' failure. Their exchange focused on further UN efforts with a personal involvement by Ban Ki-moon a few weeks before he steps down as Secretary-General at the end of the year. Ban's spokesman Stefan Dujarric expressed the hope that the two leaders will continue to work tirelessly, as they have done thus far, towards the goal of reaching a settlement in 2016 to the benefit of all Cypriots. He further assured that the UN and the Secretary-General himself will continue to support efforts to this end. Espan Barth-Aida returns to Cyprus next week, and according to the Cyprus news agency, he will tell the leaders of the two communities that it's not game over. The United States still believes this is the best chance in decades to achieve a solution and are prepared to offer any assistance that the leaders would consider useful, a U.S. Embassy spokesperson told the Cyprus news agency, commenting on the Mont Pelerin failure. He noted that the United States continues to support the Cypriot-led UN-facilitated efforts of the two leaders to realize the hopes of all Cypriots and bring about a just and lasting settlement. The embassy official stressed that Washington is very encouraged by the considerable progress Cypriot leaders have made this year and hopes they continue to work to reunify the island as a bizonal bicommunal federation, which would benefit all Cypriots as well as the wider region. The unfortunate outcome of the Swiss round of negotiations must not become an obstacle on the way to reaching a comprehensive settlement, Russian ambassador to Cyprus Stanislav Osadchi told the Cyprus news agency. He made clear it would be unacceptable to impose any timeframes. Commenting on the Mont Pelerin failure, the Russian ambassador said that Russia stands for the continuation of the negotiation process without preconditions and for the further search of a solution which would meet the interests of both communities of the island. Osadchi noted that the issues of security of the united island must be discussed within the framework of an international conference with the participation of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said he was keeping an open mind on whether to pull out of a landmark international accord to fight climate change, in a softening of his stance toward global warming. Trump told the New York Times in an interview that he thinks there is some connectivity between human activity and global warming, despite previously describing climate change as a hoax. A source on Trump's transition team told Reuters earlier this month that the New York businessman was seeking quick ways to withdraw the United States from the 2015 Paris Agreement to combat climate change. A U.S. withdrawal from the pact, agreed to by almost 200 countries, would set back international efforts to limit rising temperatures that have been linked to the extinctions of animals and plants, heat waves, floods, and rising sea levels. Trump, who takes office on January the 20th, also said he was thinking about climate change and American competitiveness. A woman has died after being pulled from the sea, and concerns are growing over a 69-year-old man feared drowned as rough seas, flash floods and swollen rivers caused problems across swathes of the UK over the past 2 days. Although drier, colder weather is expected today and tomorrow, the Environment Agency warned homes and businesses that have escaped so far may still be hit by flooding as water makes its way through river and stream systems. It highlighted particular concerns for Dorset and York. Travel to some parts of the country is expected to remain difficult for much of the rest of the week, with the southwest of England particularly badly hit. There were calls in Devon and Cornwall for more money to be spent on infrastructure after part of the main line between London and the West Country was washed away and is likely to remain impassable until tomorrow. Now for a look at the weather. Initially fine skies tomorrow, but turning increasingly cloudy later in the day. Winds will be easterly to northeasterly, light to moderate, force 3 to 4, and in windward regions, strong force 5 over moderate seas. Temperatures will rise to 21 Celsius inland and in eastern coastal regions, 23 in the rest of the coastal areas, and 10 over the mountains. The fire hazard remains high in all forest areas. That's all from us here. Join us tomorrow for more news in English. Have a very good evening.